Woo, triple black in the saddle again, baby. And wow, we're going to do a little bit of a victory lap in this episode, let me tell you, and I'll probably repeat that little victory lap in this week's Sovereign Tech Prime episode, but I got some good stuff planned for that. Hopefully, we'll get to the victory lap later. Hopefully, you cannot hear that hard drive. I got to give out a huge thank you to a Sovereign Tech listener that went to the Sovereign Tech wish list, which is wishlist.zog.ninja. That's the URL for it. Thank you for frequenting that. And somebody, pretty much in the nick of time, got me an external Seagate 8 terabyte hard drive. This thing is beautiful, and I'm amazed it doesn't look like a dual drive bay. Like it's just one bay, very slim. I mean, it's not a 2.5 inch drive. It's a 3.5, but very slim, and it has the two USB ports in the front so that I can just charge devices off of it, which is great because, when it's a full-size external hard drive, obviously it's going to take up a plug on the, on the backup power supply, on the ups, as they would call them. So this is very, very nice, and I'm actually right at this moment, I'm transferring some stuff because, well, there was that Amazon Cloud Drive, right, which offered completely unlimited storage after Microsoft pulled off their OneDrive Gate bullshit where they were offering unlimited cloud storage to everybody. But then they said, oh, yeah, we're going to cut it. We're going to scale it back to where we had it before, which is at 5 terabytes per user. But, actually, we're not even going to do that. We're going to scale it back to where it's 1 terabyte per user. And you can't even pay for more if you wanted to. So 1 terabyte for you, Jack, and there you go. And then Amazon Cloud Drive just a few months ago does the same goddamn thing, right down to the 1 terabyte. And they want $60 a month for a 1 terabyte hard drive per year. What a bunch of shit. I mean, what a bunch of horseshit. Who the fuck is going to pay for like a cloud? AWS is one thing. Glacier is one thing, okay, because that has practical uses in the business space. Seriously, who the hell is going to pay $60 a year to Amazon for 1 terabyte of storage? All you're getting is cloud storage. For, I guess, what would chalk up to being double that, $10 a month. With Microsoft, with OneDrive, as shitty as OneDrive Gate was, and it was one of the worst things they've ever done, straight up, okay? You get Office, you get like music storage, you get, that can work through Groove. I mean, you get tons of crap. Like, it's crazy how much you get with that subscription. But with Amazon, $60 and all I get is lousy fucking, 1 terabyte of storage. Go buy a goddamn, $60 hard drive that you don't have to pay for every year, that you can keep forever and you don't have to worry about it. It's local storage, and local's better for you. Anybody shop local. Woo! Store local. How about that? Maybe that'll be a new term. Oh, man. So anyway, fortunately, downloaded terabytes upon terabytes upon terabytes upon terabytes of data from Amazon Cloud Drive, and I got this handy-dandy 8 terabyte hard drive that it's all transferring to right now. It's actually almost done. It's about 90%. But anyway, thank you so much for anybody. I mean, thank you, of course, to the patrons. Thank you to anybody that does donate things. I had just an amazing listener donate even just a lamp. We got new lighting in the BDSM studio, which is great. I mean, this is a beautiful full-on lamp. I mean, it, don't. It's not just some desk lamp. Like, this is serious. And even like a beautiful phone stand that gives me kind of a second and third screen, which is really nice. I mean, just fantastic. So thank you to everybody that that frequents the wish list and beyond, and of course, thank you to the patrons who are the only people generally hearing the sound of my voice. So anyway, so that 8 terabyte hard drive, though, loud as fuck. When that thing's really running, like it's making a good clunk, 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 clunk. Now I know a thing or two about hard drives. It's not the kind of clunk where you're like, oh boy, I need to replace this. No, it's making a fairly loud noise, and I don't know if it's. I bet there's not even a 3.5 inch drive in there. I bet that there's like some kind of custom build inside that, and that's why it's so loud. Because part of the reason with your standard hard drive, not an SSD, but with your standard glass platinum hard drive, part of the reason that they put it in a giant block of aluminum. Yes, it's to create a standardized size for hard drives that can, work within a case or a server or whatever. But also, there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Not dispensation. Whatever. It's to quiet down the drive. I can't think of the term I'm looking for. But anyway, it's literally to quiet down the drive. Like that is a huge part of the reason that they are in these massive blocks of aluminum. So anyway, this probably isn't in a block of aluminum, but with that amount of storage in such a very carryable design, it's like I said, it's not like a laptop drive size, but for really what is a very carryable design, it's stunning. And you know what? I remember when the first 2 terabyte hard drives came out, and those 2 terabyte hard drives, it was a monster. Like you could barely hold it in your hand because it was, 2 giant 1 terabyte drives. And we're talking 2008, 2009, something like that. And Western Digital was coming out, they had their My Book series, which they still have. These things were beasts. You never wanted to pack them up or carry them anywhere. This thing you could pack up and away you go, and everything you've got going on for you is doing just fine. So anyway, thank you for that. And I'm not going to go into what exactly is on this thing, but there's some gold, let me assure you. So anyway, let's get into this week's Q&A. This is your Wednesday Q&A. Of course, earlier you also ended up getting... I did the Star Wars update, which was actually, so I'm recording this on the 29th of November. The Star Wars update was supposed to come out on the 28th, not double up on the 29th with the Q&A, but whatever, that's how the schedule ended up working. And of course, you have your Star Trek update coming out tomorrow. And the reason that I scheduled the Star Trek update so late in the month is that I found out that, the Star Trek Discovery comic book that was going to start didn't release until the fucking 28th, or I'm sorry, till the 29th. So that meant Star Trek Discovery was going to be on the 30th. There you go. Star Trek, the Star Trek update for Sovereign Tech patrons is coming out on the 30th. So there we go. And we got tons of great other stuff, of course, coming out. In fact, a little surprise, Stephanie actually recorded some stuff for things that are coming out, and I'm really excited about that. She had a great time. So, okay, let's start talking about our questions, and we've got a few. There's going to be quite a bit of Bitcoin talk a little bit later on here, but some of the initial questions actually play off of, and I think they're somewhat important, play off of things that we talked about in last week's Patreon only Q&A. Not the Q&A that we just had, the live Hangout Q&A that came out Sunday, but last Wednesday's Q&A. So one of them had to do, well, here's a bit of an update. So last week we talked quite a bit about setting up a LineageOS phone, and LineageOS is an Android alternative. Like, it's Android, but it's a custom version of Android. It's custom ROM, far more open, gives you a lot more options. You don't have to put in Google's bullshit if you don't want to, etc. It's a really, really beautiful thing. And I have a Echo Le Pro 3 smartphone that I recently put LineageOS 14.1 on, waiting for version 15, which I expect would be early 2018 when that comes out, though we might be surprised before the end of the year, which is, 14.1 in LineageOS terms is really Android 7.1. And of course, LineageOS 15 will end up being Oreo or Android 8.0. So with LineageOS, now last week I said, what's amazing is that with LineageOS, and I really think because it's such a pure code base for the operating system, that it cleans up a lot of problems, a lot of little odd nagging problems that happen with with devices that are running either a skinned version of Android from the manufacturer or just a more regular version of like a more stock version of Android. The Signal app, which I recommend everybody fucking use, okay? My favorite way to communicate. The Signal app, now it has had the ability for a long time to also be, not just send, your encrypted Signal messages, but also on Android, can't do that, with Apple, you're stuck with iMessage. Even though you do have the Signal app, just if you want to do SMS, you have to use iMessage. But with Android, you could use it as your default SMS client. Okay. Now you might have concerns around doing that. Over the years, I've had concerns. I'll describe that in a second. But there were the concerns that you might have now are because like Signal's not baking in right away. A lot of the newer protocols that Google is putting into the stock Android Messenger, what is it, like RCS? Is that what it is? RCS, the rich texting format, not RTF. We're not opening up WordPad, okay? But sorry, but anyway, yeah. So you might have concerns around that, but the concern that I did have over the years was that it seemed like I would miss text messages from people that weren't also using the Signal app. If I had Signal set as my default SMS app as well as my Signal app, obviously, like if somebody didn't have that same setup where they were also using it as their SMS messenger, I would miss their messages, or vice versa. Like there would be some kind of confusion, some kind of clusterfuck. And I haven't noticed that at all. In fact, it's been amazing how perfectly well Signal has worked with LineageOS. I mean, just perfect. Now, last week I mentioned, and this is a correction I want to make. Last week I was like, well, it's going to put your SMS messages kind of in the secure enclave of the Signal app. And if you're running Cortana, which I'll talk a little bit more about this as well, but if you're running Cortana on your phone, LineageOS or Android or whatever, Cortana can do, if you have a Windows 10 computer and you're running Cortana, and if you don't have a Windows 10 computer or a Windows computer anyway, and you're running Cortana, I think that's kind of weird, but maybe there are people out there like that. I don't know. So, I mean, maybe you don't have a computer. That's the only thing I could imagine, because like the argument for using Cortana is because you are like really into Microsoft's ecosystem. So yeah, hard to believe. Anyway, so Cortana can forward like your text messages, your notifications from your phone and all that onto your Windows 10 desktop, where it'll show up in the Action Center. It'll show up on the right-hand side. Now, last week I said that because the SMS messages are in the secure enclave of Signal, when Signal is your default messaging app, they do not show, Cortana won't forward them to you, and that's kind of a bit of a loss in the feature. I was wrong, and I don't know if there was an update or something that changed it, but like a couple days after I had said that, suddenly I started getting my text messages that were, if I looked at them on my phone, I would have to unlock Signal and then I could see them. But they would show up in the RAW on my Windows 10 desktop. Now, understand, if it was a Signal message, it wouldn't give me a notification, and it sure as fuck wouldn't show me what the hell, the Signal message was. Of course, I have the Signal desktop app available to do that sort of thing, but it will not show up in the Action Center. So I'm not saying that Signal, that Cortana shows you what your Signal messages are. It does not. Okay, what I'm saying is that it shows the SMS messages, even though those SMS messages are working within Signal, albeit in the clear within Signal. So I thought that was interesting. So that's good. I mean, it's not a negative. That's actually a very good thing that works that way. If you are interested in having that kind of, symbiosis and integration between your mobile and desktop platform. So anyway, some other things, with LineageOS, somebody did message me, and I think I kind of mentioned it last week. I said, there are workarounds. There are ways to get certain apps, like the Netflix app doesn't work on it, on LineageOS. Nintendo apps don't work on LineageOS. There are some others, but largely it's rare that doesn't work. Anyway, there is software out there that can fix all of those problems. So if that's something that's kept you from using LineageOS, you can resolve that. For me, it's not the biggest deal. I mean, it does kind of suck not to have the Nintendo apps on there. So I'm probably going to go through the process that was sent in to me by the Sovereign Tech listener, and I may report back on that. We'll see. But just because I want to be able to run Mitomo, it's kind of a big deal as far as my workflow. And seriously, it is for my workflow. I mean, it's not like I'm really tired of what the app does in general. So it's not like it was fun for a while, but then people stop using it. If there's not like gals on there asking sexy questions and everything, like kind of what's the point? So anyway, I do want to take advantage of that. That's well, I'm going to give that a shot. We'll see what happens. And yeah, I was just saying that Mitomo is genuinely a part of my work. It's not necessarily for fun anymore. So anyway, yeah, I have been, I'm still using it, and I've been using it in the, shall we say, the Android Pro mode, which is Android Pro is what you call a phone that is using all Microsoft software on it. And by the way, Microsoft Edge for mobile just came out of beta, and it's now a full release. It's not a preview anymore or anything like that. I don't use Edge anymore. I was testing it for a little while, but I don't really use it. I use Firefox straight up. Firefox, holy fuck. Firefox is so fast now. Ever since version 57, I mean, it screams. I'm in awe at just how solid that is. I mean, on desktop and on mobile, frankly. But on desktop, it just kills it. Oh, man. You think you never get excited about a browser again, and that kind of shit happens, and then you just realize, holy shit, that's amazing. So anyway, yeah, but I use that. We're going to talk about some, like I said, with Bitcoin. We'll get back to maybe some of the LineageOS stuff as well. Some people had asked me, like, what do you do about maps? Because you actually don't have to run Google Maps on a LineageOS phone. Like, normally that comes stock with just about any Android phone you buy, but if you install LineageOS, you don't need to do that. Microsoft actually used to own what was called Here Maps when it was part of Nokia. And when Here Maps was part of Nokia, now Here Maps is like some independent thing. But Here Maps is something that you could use if you're really wanting to go for that full-on Microsoft phone. That's really the one to use is Here Maps. And Here Maps is still pretty nice because it has really impressive, like, offline maps. You could store the entire world of maps inside of like 20 gigs. So if you have a phone with pretty good storage, you could have a completely offline map available where you don't need a data connection, and that's pretty nice. So Here Maps is an awesome solution for that. And of course, also, if you're traveling abroad, you can put the Microsoft Translate app instead of Google Translate. Microsoft Translate, you can actually store languages offline, so that you could use it completely offline. Makes for a very interesting prospect. But anyway, I got to admit, like, I'm not using really any Google software. I mean, there's the Google Play Store, but I'm not using any Google software on here, and I have no problem. Like, I don't feel like I'm missing a goddamn thing by not using any Google software whatsoever. Now, granted, if it's with a client and the client happens to like Google Docs, and of course, as we talked about in this week's Sovereign Tech Prime episode, the Golden Stallion really can't legally use Google Docs because all I do is write porn. Boy, did anybody read that latest Sovereign Tech newsletter? Woo, pure heat, baby. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, with no Google app, like, it's not a problem. It's really not a problem, and sure, you could say YouTube. Okay, I mean, you could install YouTube. You could run that through a browser if you needed to. I don't know. I don't really watch YouTube videos on mobile anyway, so that's not something, that's also not a big deal for me, but that might be a big deal for you, in which case, well, yeah, I guess you got to use YouTube because, I mean, it's YouTube. But overall, it's been working great. You know what I did do, just to test, just to see what's it like? I installed the Facebook app on this device, and I watched. One of the selling points of the Echo Pro of the La Pro 3 is that it has like this huge 4,000 milliampere battery or something like that. I mean, very impressive battery life, man. Now I knew Cortana, would drain some battery, which that's something to keep in mind if you're going for this whole Android Pro phone. Okay, but as soon as I put the Facebook app on there, I mean, that battery was dying. I couldn't get through a day. I absolutely could not get through a day. Take the Facebook app off, now I get through a day with ease. Okay, but leave it on there, you're fucked. It's crazy. I mean, that app is so fucking bad, and it's still so bad. We've been talking about this, about the battery drain issue with Android, with Facebook. We've had to have been talking about this for years, at least 3-4 years. And they still haven't fixed it. It's fucking terrible. Yes, you could use Facebook Lite. Yeah, there's other Facebook wrapper apps that you could use. I know. Okay. But if you want to use the stock Facebook app, and what's interesting about it, like the Facebook Android app has so many features built into it. I mean, it's practically an operating system on its own. And of course, that's how Facebook wants it. But like I just noticed so many custom things that really only the Android app can do. A lot of it, like the stickers, like kind of the more motion stickers, to make them within a post. That generally only works within the Facebook app. Also, the Android app gives you, you know how Facebook has backgrounds now for your posts. You could choose like all of them. In the Android app, you could just pick every one. On desktop, it's a roll of the dice as far as which ones they decide to grace you with at any given point. On the Facebook Android app, they're all there. Okay, but I can't justify running that fucking app. It kills the phone. I mean, I can't get through the day just because that goddamn thing's installed. Fuck you. Oh, no way. So that got uninstalled. And I just, if I have to, I run the mobile site, through Firefox, which, runs like a dream. Firefox does anyway. I'm not saying Facebook ever did. But anyway, I mean, there's just, and there is the Windows 10 Facebook app that can do some of the things that the Android app can do. I'm not talking about like accessing a desktop version of the website. I mean, there's a full-on Facebook app for Windows 10 in the Microsoft Store that will give you the ability like to do the audio casts or the video casts and all this other stuff. But it's definitely not at the feature-rich level that the Android app is. The Android app is kind of unique, even more so than the iOS app, in just how much it can do, and that's partly because of how partly open Android is. So anyway, I don't recommend, and LineageOS obviously does nothing to help with this matter, nor could I imagine why it would. But yeah, just don't use that Facebook app. It's holy shit, it's so bad. I mean, unless you're regularly near, I don't know, a power supply or something, and it doesn't matter. It's terrible, just how brutal it is. But it's actually been a pretty cool experience. I could really see people being, attracted to this kind of setup where, you're running a bunch of Microsoft apps and, and you have a Windows 10 machine and just kind of that synergy. It just works. It just flows. I'm very impressed. And of course, LineageOS is also the great way to run no apps from any tech giant and just have a goddamn phone, which is a great thing, to really do. So anyway, I've been talking about 20 minutes, or I've been talking at least 10, 15 minutes about all of that. Just wanted to let you know a little bit more as far as how that goes and just give you the update on the fact that actually I misstated last week. It's totally possible for Cortana to still forward SMS messages and for you to reply to those SMS messages on your desktop, even when you have it running through Signal. So again, only SMS messages. Signal messages, nothing gets through to that. Nothing harms those. So, all right, let's move on to something else. Okay, so this is also kind of a sequel from last week. And it's a sequel in that one of the things I didn't get to last week when we were doing the big pitch, shall we say, for open source and for using Linux and open hardware and all that. We spent a good chunk of time on last week's episode talking about that. So I didn't really mention, I mentioned Ubuntu, but I didn't really mention what actually is the best OS to use because that was part of the question. And I realized that I missed it. And so I want to, address it here. The best operating system, okay, there's so many different Linux distributions and a lot of it just comes down, really to taste. I will say that, the most secure operating system out there, I'm not going to count BSD in any of this, like OpenBSD or FreeBSD or GhostBSD or anything like that. Not counting any of that. So just Linux. Probably the most secure one out there is Qubes OS, QUBES OS. I know, I have great friends that love it. They use it and they say it's very easy to install now, which is great because that wasn't always true. Edward Snowden recommends Qubes OS. Take that for what you will. Qubes OS, what makes it special is that it sandboxes fucking everything. Now, the part of the problem there is that to run Qubes OS, your processor has to allow for a certain degree of virtualization. Okay, so that's how it's able to run at pretty much the regular speed that the computer's supposed to run at, but at the same time, run every app that you're running as if it were its own operating system. That's pretty much what sandboxing means. It's keeping it from affecting the rest of the OS or other apps in general. So Qubes OS is probably the most secure one. or not probably, it is, as far as Linux distributions go. As far as like what's the most popular, what's the one that you can get the best answers for and has the best community support and all that, that's easily Ubuntu. Now, Ubuntu itself comes in a bunch of different flavors. Like you have Ubuntu Mate, you have Xubuntu, Kubuntu. There's Lubuntu, which uses LXD, which I always really loved. Xubuntu is probably my favorite, which uses XFCE or Crossface. But Ubuntu is probably the most supported, most community documented version of Linux. If you're just learning Linux, in my opinion, that's really the place to start. Now, a lot of people will say that if you're new, and especially if you're coming from Windows, what you want to use is what's called Linux Mint. And Linux Mint is based off of Ubuntu, but what they do is they try to make it as, the installation and, its operation and everything as simple as possible. And I mean, like they will toss in, but there's caveats to this, okay? As simple as possible. They make it look like Windows. They make it more or less run like Windows. And just about any hardware you throw at Linux Mint, it will work on, which can be a challenge with, and we talked about that last week, which can be a challenge for some other distributions of Linux as far as like being able to detect all of your hardware and use it efficiently or accurately. Now, the reason Linux Mint can do that is because Linux Mint is not completely open source. And if you're trying to get into the, break into the open source movement, well, you don't want to be tossing, operating systems on your machines that use a ton of closed source code. And I don't see, in my personal opinion, I've never really seen the advantage other than the way that it looks. And understand with Linux, you can put a bunch of different GUIs, as in graphical user interfaces, over the operating systems to where it can look any way that you want. You just have to, and it's not even hard work. You just have to know how to install these things, and that all gets done through package centers. It's like pretty much every version of Linux now has what equates to an app store, much like you would have on a mobile device. So it's not like it's hard, okay? If you don't want it to be, you can do it all through terminal, but and the command line, but you don't have to. I don't get the argument for Linux Mint. I get it. It's been the most popular for, Linux distribution for a long time. I understand, I guess, that it makes it easy for people that don't know shit about Linux. But then at the same time, like if you really don't know shit about Linux, like nothing, and you don't even want to learn, I guess it's better for all of us that you're on it, but I don't know. That just... something about that doesn't sit right with me. So I don't quite get the argument for Linux Mint. I know there's people out there that love it, and if you love it, fine, have a good time. I would start, if you're new to Linux, I would definitely start with Ubuntu or one of its derivatives. Debian, of course, is very popular, which is what Ubuntu is actually based off of, is Debian. Triskel is actually based off of Ubuntu, but it's completely stripped of anything that doesn't really pass the sniff test for the Free Software Foundation. So there's Triskel. Myself, so the first Linux I ever used, I used Slack or Slackware Linux, and that you can still use. They still update regularly. They update Slackware all the time. You're going like full command line. That is not an easy thing to install. You're going through a whole lot of processes. That's a, for lack of a better phrase, it's a Linux man's Linux. Okay, Slackware is very serious. Fedora, or at the time, which was Red Hat, is really, really where I cut my teeth. Like where I really dug deep into using Linux. Fedora is still very popular. It's probably the most popular after Linux Mint and Ubuntu. Maybe Arch Linux has taken the cake on that or whatever. Arch Linux is another one, kind of like Slackware, where you can do anything with it, and the installation isn't too bad, but it definitely meant for more experienced users. So I would stick with either really, even Fedora. Fedora seems to just have, for as far as having a community, it feels like it's kind of fallen by the wayside, and that's really sad because I love Fedora. I know the people that need Fedora and use Fedora, they use it. Like, NASA, you go down the list. Fedora is still deadly serious, and it's funded by Red Hat, which, tons of enterprise uses Red Hat, and, thankfully. But yeah, I would probably just roll with Ubuntu. That's the direction I go. I mean, there's a bunch of there's a lot of, I don't know what you would call them, almost like vanity distributions or vanity OSs. I mean, you have like Elementary OS, which is very interesting. You have OpenSUSE. I mean, there's a bunch of, there's tons of them. I mean, there's just tons of them. So, but I think if you're just starting out, you really want to rock one where if you go to DuckDuckGo or whatever search engine and you're trying to find an answer on how to do something, your best bet is with Ubuntu. And just regular Ubuntu, not Xubuntu or Kubuntu or anything. You're going to find the answers that you are looking for, and you're going to find them very quickly. So, yeah, and also there's, just rock solid documentation that comes out with every new version of Ubuntu, like very easy to use books that tell you how to do everything on the OS. I can't say that for every other version. Certainly, I wish Fedora had that, and it, for everybody, but it doesn't. And frankly, I mean, if you're going for anything beyond kind of the ease of use of Ubuntu, you might as well use CubesOS at that point, in my opinion, because otherwise all of the arguments of how one is superior to the other, I mean, it all kind of falls flat in the eyes of like security and privacy, and CubesOS is just the king of that. So for me, I mean, or Arch, if you're really an advanced, obviously if you're an advanced Linux user, you probably already know about Arch Linux. Arch Linux is so great. But yeah, those are the directions I would be looking at, either Arch, Ubuntu, or CubesOS. Those would be the ones, and each one has their own advantage. CubesOS is just, it's so phenomenal. The more people that get on board with that, really, the better. So, all right, let's move on from that, and you know what? Let's take that little victory lap here, and then we'll see what else we can get into. I had said this would have been 2013. Or maybe 2014, or like in that area. Okay, and I won't get any credit for this. In fact, I'm not even hearing the other guy that made the same claim, who's certainly a much bigger name than I am, that being Tim Draper. I'm not seeing them get any credit for it, and I'm seeing a whole bunch of people that really don't know jack shit and may have made terrible calls. Is the Shemitah still on? Or did that happen? Wasn't that supposed to happen? Wasn't it just delayed a year? Hasn't it been a year? Isn't it November? Where's the Shemitah? Okay, so pay no attention to that. Sorry. But anyway, in 2013, 2014, I had made the claim, as well as Tim Draper. I said by 2017, within 3 years was my point. In 3 years, okay. In 2017, we would be looking at $10,000 per Bitcoin. My justification for that was that there was so much infrastructure getting built for Bitcoin, so many companies that were getting started up and that were playing it conservative, meaning that they're being cautious and knowing that it was going to take them time, and so they're playing their spreadsheets right, their balance sheets. And they were spending the time building up the infrastructure of Bitcoin. And I said, and so, in 3 years' time, they're going to be ready. They're going to be done. You're going to have hundreds of companies out there that are part of Bitcoin, and they're finally going to, essentially unleash themselves upon the world. And when that happens, Bitcoin is easily going to do $10,000. Well, as of today, we're looking at, this morning, it was like 11.4. It was like $11,400 some odd dollars. And it might even had been higher, but that's what I saw. Okay, you don't need to email me and tell me what it actually was. You get the point. So victory lap, baby, because I was fucking right. I called it 3 years ago. I don't know what it takes to get like the credit that, I don't know, Peter Schiff and some of these other dipshits get, they called the housing crisis, like 6 months in advance. Oh, good for you, or I don't know, whatever. But hey, I call shit all the time. It ends up happening. I get no credit for it. I mean, I get credit from you, the listeners, but I don't get any credit, outside of that. It's hilarious to me that doesn't happen, but I'll take my victory lap all the same. It did $10,000 in 2017, just like I said. It happened. I didn't have any doubts. I really didn't have any doubts that it could do that it could pull that off. And there were some long, long winters in Bitcoin, no doubt about that. Okay, but I had no doubts that it could pull it off. If it wasn't going to be, in November 2017 or December, I mean, it would have been very early in 2018 that I think it would have hit it. So I could have been off a little bit, I suppose. But no, I called this, and I mean, the people that know me, they told me, they said, whoa, you were absolutely right. The instant it hit 10,000. Now, something I had recommended to people when I made that claim back then, I said, look, I said, even people that hate Bitcoin admit that it can do $10,000. Okay. And they would give you the recommendation just as I would. When it hits $10,000, sell, get the fuck out of it. Like if you want to. There's no reason. You don't have to get out of it. I think Bitcoin is going to be just fine. I understand there are great arguments to be made for having concerns, considering the little civil war, not so little civil war that's going on between Bitcoin Cash and and legacy Bitcoin, as it's called. Even though I think that's really insulting to call that legacy Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean here it is. Like. We're there. We're well above 10,000. It's amazing. It did do a little dip under 10,000 again today, but just remarkable. And it's funny because you had people saying, yeah, we know it's $2,000. Yeah, we know it's $3,000. It's still early. Buy in at 3,000. And well, yeah, I mean, if you bought in at 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000, you'd still be doing great. You'd be doubling your money, and I agree that 10,000 could still be the low ball number. Like we could be talking about, Bitcoin going into the millions. I get a lot of people asking me about Bitcoin Cash. I'm not the biggest fan of that. So I'm not going to make any like crazy prediction of what's going to happen with it. I guess I could see where there's some utility for it. I am definitely, far more, I guess I'm pro legacy Bitcoin. And part of the reason for that is that I really like legacy Bitcoin has obviously very seasoned coders. Okay. I don't mind if people want to experiment with other things. I don't mind if people want to implement stuff. Okay. But, earlier I mentioned a Linux version called Debian, which isn't a bad Linux to learn, since most of the popular versions of Linux, like Ubuntu and others, are really just based on Debian. I bring up this example a lot of how to do security and coding right. With Debian, with that version of Linux, there are years-long arguments with the development team over to even just add a wallpaper. One wallpaper. Say they want to add a pretty picture. That it is this long, drawn-out arguments. They do not want to change things like that because every little thing you add is potentially another problem of some kind. And that is the attitude of very seasoned coders. I say that with total respect. Okay. There's nothing wrong with wanting, to operate in the other direction too. Well, I mean, there might be something wrong with that. Depends on how important that infrastructure is. If you want to go, all extreme coding on me, but for something as important as an operating system, I really respect, that trepidation and that conservatism on the part of the coders. Now, that I feel is an allegory for the legacy Bitcoin development team. And I think that in many ways they're doing it right. Like, I don't mind if they implement SegWit. I have no problem with SegWit. I don't mind, whatever they end up doing. But if they are slow to change, if they are, with other things, I mean, okay, good, because Bitcoin obviously is that serious. It has that high value. You want to have the attitude that, like say that the Debian, development team has, because they know just how important their operating system is to the entire planet, just like Bitcoin may be incredibly important to who knows what country, when, during what revolution or whatever, to so many people. So anyway, hey, look, modesty is not a virtue. I was fucking right. I called it years ago. It's out in the open. People could verify it. They can listen back to the episodes of Sovereign Tech where I said it over and over and over again. And that's why I repeat myself a lot, because I don't want you to like, oh, well, he re-uploaded some file to this one. I mean, you have no idea how many episodes I would have to, like, I don't even know where they are, which ones I'd have to re-record or put up there where I said it. But I know I said it many, many times. In 2017, you're going to see in 3 years, I had said from that point, you're going to see $10,000 Bitcoin. It's going to happen. It happened. And everybody's asking, whoa, why is the price like this? Well, there were people who predicted that it would be this way. Maybe you should look at the reasons that they said. Tim Draper, myself, others, maybe. So there it is. Also, the other prediction that I'm still fucking right about with Bitcoin, doesn't look like Amazon's accepting any cryptocurrencies, are they? No. Not a one. But Stallion, they got those web addresses, they got those URLs, those domain names, they got to be accepting it. What's going? They even got Amazon, Bitcoin.com. Well, are they doing it? No. So who's right? Me. Will I get credit for that? Not from the larger community. Doesn't matter. They don't give a shit. And in fact, I don't need it to stroke my ego or anything. Like, I really don't. But there's some people who I'm actually a little hurt that they're not saying, hey, Brian Sovereign was right. Maybe you should check out Sovereign Tech. I'd love it if they did. But because I know they know, but whatever. There it is. Now, you know what? Quick side tangent. We're going to talk a little more Bitcoin stuff here in a minute. Okay. Quick side tangent. Maybe I've said this before. I get so annoyed, and I can smell it. I know when it's happening. I get so annoyed when, I have some friends that are like all around the world, or maybe even, might be closer by or something like that. I can so tell when their social media accounts suddenly become effectively business accounts, and everything they do, they have to like certain things by certain people, things that I think are just banal or dumb or whatever. And they have to like shit by them because they need to like play nice, say because whoever the person is investing in their company or doing stuff like this. God, fuck's sake, I get so annoyed by that. So annoyed, and because like then it just goes to show the problems of social media, because then social media is really not about connection, is it? It's not about authentic, human connection in any way, shape, or form. And man, that drives me up the fucking wall. And it happens a lot in the cryptocurrency space. I mean, like, it happens all the time. And suddenly people got to, keep their noses clean as far as things go. And it's just maddening. Anyway, Zencash, real quick on that. Boy, they're secure nodes. They are running them out. They're in the main net, but they are still effectively in beta, I think, for the next couple of weeks. But that's rolling out. Good for them. That was an exciting development that I noticed. Anyway, I do have another question about Bitcoin. Going to retread a little bit of ground. We've kind of been retreading quite a bit of ground in this episode, but I've said this many times. There's times where we're just going to have to recover some of these questions. Like, what's the best VPN? What's the best operating system? What's the best this? Blah 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 blah. Okay, sometimes you got to go over this. You got to do your yearly checkups or your 6-month checkups or whatever. Because in the tech world, this stuff changes by the second, let alone 6 months or a year or a day. So let's see here. So here's the question. Okay, so instead of beating myself up not getting into cryptocurrency back in 2007, I'm just going to move forward and start investing as best I can. I'm already using Helium. I'd like to start Helium, by the way, is technically a Sovereign Tech sponsor, which you can look into. It's HELEUM. If you want to find out about that. It's I've done interviews. There was an interview with Pace Ellsworth, just a great guy, that I did for, I think it was a Patreon special, or maybe I released it fully in a Sovereign Tech episode where we talked about Helium. But anyway. So already using Helium, which allows you to kind of invest with, modest returns, hedging between different cryptocurrencies effectively. So reading on with the question, I'd like to start purchasing Bitcoin, and it says BTC, not Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Zencash, and store them in as few reputable wallets as possible. 2 questions. 1. Where/how shall I purchase aforementioned coins? 2. What wallets do you recommend? I'm going to be purchasing this week, if not next Friday. So, okay. Look, I hope that the $10,000 Bitcoin story should tell everybody it's never too late to get into this stuff. It's really not, because there's really no limits, because at least in some parts of the world, at any given moment, there's no regulation on this shit. So, the sky is in many ways the limit, as far as what these things, what value they can reach, what they can do, what they're capable of, etc. I mean, you just mentioned about how Zencash now is rolling out their secure nodes, and all this. I mean, it's such an exciting space to really get into. You want to know your shit when you get into it. Okay. I am answering a question. Take it as that. This is Patreon. This is not some kind of, investing dirt sheet. Keep that in mind. So, just putting out my disclaimer, I guess. But anyway, these are a couple of great questions. And first off, I'll say the three that he mentioned, Bitcoin, as in Bitcoin Legacy, Litecoin, and Zencash, those are three excellent ones to get into. Litecoin as well. I think people might be shocked that Litecoin would be a recommendation. I've always spoken very well of Litecoin over the years, and it's always been in my, I usually only have like 4 or 5 cryptos that I ever get really excited about. Litecoin has always been in that 4 or 5 since it came out. It's just always been at that top of the list. It's a great, there's a lot of great arguments for its existence, and I think some people say that Bitcoin Cash what it'll replace isn't Bitcoin, but it'll replace Litecoin as more of the experimental platform. Maybe, but I don't think so. I think Litecoin, you have such great developers with Litecoin, just like you do with legacy Bitcoin, that I don't know. I don't see Bitcoin Cash doing that. So anyway, all three of those great ideas. So where/how shall I purchase aforementioned coins? Okay. Pretty much what you want to do is you need to get your USD, your US dollars, into Bitcoin. Once it's into Bitcoin, then it's very easy. You have a ton of options with which, to get your hands on, on various cryptos and all that. So one of the possibilities to use for how to get your USD into Bitcoin, of course, the easiest one, and some would argue the most questionable, is Coinbase. Coinbase, it's an option. There it is. The other way to do it, you could know somebody who would be willing, perhaps, to, that you trust, who would be willing to sell you Bitcoin, and you could send them PayPal or something like that. There's also the website Local Bitcoins, which is still very popular, which is a way to, you meet up with somebody and all the money ends up in escrow, and, you exchange, you give the person the cash, and then, in escrow, Local Bitcoins will release the Bitcoin to you after the fact. I'm a huge fan of Local Bitcoins. Yes, there's risk involved with that. You could be meeting up with somebody, and if you're handing them a couple $1,000s, who knows what the fuck could happen. I get that. I understand that those risks are there. Something to keep in mind. The least risky, as far as like someone besides the government coming after you, would be Coinbase, really to do that. I would not use Bitfinex or anything like that. Just those, in my opinion, all of that's completely off the table. The best thing is to find somebody that will sell you Bitcoin. Really, that's the ultimate way to go about it. And if that's Local Bitcoins, or if it's just somebody that's really the way to do it. So once it's into Bitcoin, and there's others like their BISC network. Does that allow for? I think that's more of an exchange. I don't think it allows you really to do USD to Bitcoin so much. BISQ, which is like this decentralized exchange that's trying to get built. But that I have not messed with that much, so don't quote me on that. Okay, so once you get your money into Bitcoin, and I know what you're asking, what wallet do you use? We'll talk about that in a second. Once you get your money into Bitcoin, okay, what you want to do is, before we get into the wallets, you are going to use a site called Bittrex. This is kind of like it's my, I guess I'll say, favorite exchange to use right now. Exchange as in, this is how you can, convert Bitcoin into other cryptocurrencies. Okay. Be it Zencash, Litecoin, whatever. So now, well, actually, with Litecoin, you can buy Litecoin on Coinbase, which speaks to just how powerful of a coin that really is. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If you decide to go the Coinbase route, you can just get Litecoin raw right through Coinbase, or you can exchange, right on Coinbase between Bitcoin and Litecoin. But Bittrex, Bittrex.com. Okay, that's the website. You make an account there. They will ask you to do any kind of significant trading, and I mean as in pretty much any trading. They will ask you to verify your, to some degree, your identity. There's like 2 levels of verification. They're very simple to do. I mean, it's very basic what they ask for. If you are not comfortable with handing over that information, I understand that. But generally, Bittrex is about the best way to go, especially when it comes to getting Zencash, because it's one of only like a couple places where you can get that right now. So anyway, so Bittrex is what you want to get signed up with, okay, to do that. And once you're there, I mean, it's very basic. Like it looks like trading software. I mean, I don't know necessarily, especially over audio, you can't exactly explain how it works, but they have great guides and tutorials and everything on how to use their site, which is another great reason to use Bittrex, even though you do have to, hand over a small degree of what could be seen as personal information. So at Bittrex, you can buy Litecoin, you can buy Zencash, you can buy, I mean, there's tons of things. Bittrex lists so many, at least the popular coins. And I mean, there's hundreds. Okay. You can, there's so many things that you can get involved in on Bittrex. And really, if a coin is in any way serious, they're probably going to, they'll likely get on Bittrex in pretty short order. So yeah, it's, in my opinion, it's one of the best ways to get your hands on Zencash specifically. You could also get Zcash there, which is totally Zencash, Zcash, both of them totally valid, totally wonderful. So, that's something to consider, but that's where you want to go is Bittrex. Now, the wallet situation. This is where there's some degree of debate, okay? Or not really debate, but the wallet situation with privacy coins. Okay. Also, there's Monero. That's not a bad thing to get into either, and that's all available on Bittrex. With privacy coins, particularly zero-knowledge proof-based coins like Zcash and Zencash, to actually use the privacy aspect, okay, as in to use the zero-knowledge proofs, to use that cryptography, you have to have, a fairly powerful computer, which means it needs to at least have 4 gig of RAM. I think it has to be dual core. You got it. It's got not that that's uncommon today. Okay. But if you have a much older computer, that's not really going to fly for you. Okay. So, because with Zencash, just like with Zcash, you have 2 types of, you have 2 types of addresses. You have shielded addresses, which means that they're encrypted, or private addresses. And then you have transparent addresses, which means that the transactions that go through are wide out in the open, just like it is with Bitcoin. Okay. People can see, and they can, look on a ledger, on a block explorer and everything, and they can see what happened. As to where if you do it using a shielded or private address, they can't tell. There's no, the only transaction you can share is what you share with the person you transacted with. So now I mean, this is the thing. To handle those kind of transactions, those shielded or private transactions, you can't really use just some run-of-the-mill mobile wallet or some kind of light client. That's not possible. You have to run, more or less, you have to run a full-on node. You have to install a full-on wallet. So with zero-knowledge proof coins, I mean, you have, there's the wallet, there's Koinami, or Koinomi, however you want to pronounce it. There's Jax. Okay, these wallets have certain concerns around them, whatever. But these are multi-currency wallets that can handle all different kinds of currencies. Understand that because of that, they can't necessarily take advantage of the features that a lot of these coins have, okay, because they are a multi-coin wallet. I'm not saying they're inherently bad. I mean, they kind of are in a way, but it's whatever. There's ways to mitigate some of the challenges around them. Okay. So you really want to run, I understand, I totally agree. It's software minimalism. You want to run as few wallets as possible. You don't want a million blockchains on your computer. Of course not. That makes all the sense in the world. In fact, you don't even want to run client, you don't want to run cryptocurrency client software nonstop, really, unless you're mining or something, but that's a different situation. You don't want to run it because, I mean, it's going to be constantly, just hogging up processing power and everything, especially like Zencache's client or the Zcash client will really, really bog your computer down. So you want to run them kind of sparingly, okay? So for Zencash, now you mentioned three. You mentioned Bitcoin, Litecoin, Zencash. Here's what I would run for those. Okay, for Zencash, you go right to zensystem.io. That's the website. You go right to zensystem.io and you install their Swing wallet. That's the only wallet, in my opinion, to really trust. Okay, and it will give you all of the features. It gives you the messaging features. It gives you the the shielded / private addresses. It gives you transparent addresses. It does everything. Okay, and it really is a very simple install and a very simple wallet to use, especially on Windows. It is cross-platform. You could run it on anything. Okay, but I would use, it's what they call a Swing wallet. I would use that Swing wallet and nothing else. There is a wallet for Android, which is developed by the by the Zencash. Not just the community, but by the developers. As I understand it, it's kept an eye on by them. That's a fine wallet, but understand you're going to be limited in what you can do with that. Okay, as to where having the full client, you are not limited, and you get to take advantage of a lot of the things that are really planned for Zencash to do. So, if you just want to hold, I guess you could use a lighter client, but you could use like a multi-currency wallet, but there aren't any multi-currency wallets yet that accept Zencash. I think that'll change, but as of right now, there isn't. I really hope that Trezor in short order accepts Zencash. That would be a really big deal. If Trezor accepted Zencash, then I would say buy a Trezor and use that hardware wallet, and use it, that's your hold. Like, that's your cold storage, that's your holding, and that's what you do. Okay, Trezor is phenomenal. It's my favorite of the hardware wallets. I have a Trezor T coming. I'm very, very excited about that. So now Trezor can do Zcash, not Zencash, but it can do Zcash. It can also do Litecoin and Bitcoin. So maybe you want to do that. Now here's the rub. Okay, do not buy a Trezor wallet on like eBay or on Amazon. Only go through the site or links on the site for Trezor, for the company itself, to buy one of those. Don't do anything else, because what is supposedly or theoretically, or is either happening or theoretically happening, is that like third-party sellers are buying up Trezors as they come out, these hardware wallets, and then they are putting malicious code on them. They're putting like exploits on them so that they can take your coin. So, don't, only buy through Trezor is my point. If Trezor has a link that goes to Amazon, fine, go through that. But in general, don't just buy these things on Amazon. Buy them directly from the site. So, keep that in mind. But Trezor, these hardware wallets, they're great solutions all the way across the board. And it's worth the $100 to $200, whatever it ends up costing you. It's really worth it because they are multi-currency, but they are also super secure, which isn't always true for multi-currency wallets. And they accept Bitcoin, Litecoin, and all that just fine. So that's a great option to go with. If you wanted just a Litecoin wallet, there is a version of Electrum, Electrum. Okay, there's a version of Electrum that works with Litecoin. I would recommend that. That way you don't have to run the full client of Litecoin. Electrum, there's also a version of Electrum. The original version of Electrum is for Bitcoin. It is a beautiful, completely open source wallet. It's not a terrible option when it comes to Bitcoin, quite frankly. But if you're doing Bitcoin, if you're not going with the hardware wallet route, okay, with Bitcoin, what I recommend, and I covered this in a Q&A a few months ago. I don't know, maybe back in August. Maybe it was like July or August, I think, that I covered it in a Patreon Q&A. What you want to do is you want to run, there's a wallet called Copay that I find to be very impressive. Copay also works with Bitcoin Cash if for some reason people, kind of inspire you to be into Bitcoin Cash. So Copay is Bitcoin and pretty much Bitcoin only, okay, like other than Bitcoin Cash. And with Copay, the unique advantage of Copay, it's completely open source. It's developed by BitPay, which is one of the major companies in Bitcoin. So all of that's fine. There's no problems with the development team or anything, and it's regularly updated and it auto updates. It's beautiful. It'll ask you to update, but it can auto update. So with Copay, the advantage is that you can set up what they call multi-signature wallets, all right, where you have to, go through so many steps to be able to even spend, say, the Bitcoin that's stored there, which is multi-sig is a great form of security, okay? I'm not going to cover like what multi-sig is all here, that's something that is easily readable about, and to look up. In fact, like a great resource is to look at the work of Pamela Morgan. She's fantastic. Just one of the best people in the space. Look up her videos and everything. She talks all about how to secure your crypto, and she's phenomenal. So, anyway, so you get a Copay wallet, and here's the thing: is that you can install Copay on your desktop, and it's completely cross-platform. Copay is on everything, even mobile devices. Okay, you can install it on your desktop, and then you have one wallet on your desktop. Then you can install Copay on your smartphone, on your mobile device. And what you're going to do is, I'm not going to explain how exactly this all works, but there are also great guides. There's full videos on YouTube on how to do this. What you can do is you can set up you can set up the mobile device or the mobile version of Copay that you have installed and the desktop version of Copay that you have installed, and they can operate as a multi-signature shared wallet. What this allows for is that if you want to spend Bitcoin from your Copay wallet, the person would have to have both your phone and your and your laptop or desktop or however you set it up. And you could set it up on multiple computers if you wanted. If you want to be that secure, that's fine. Copay also allows for wallet backups, with a seed phrase and everything. So that way, if something happens to your hard drive or you lose your phone or whatever, you can restore it as long as you have the seed phrase written down somewhere. And obviously, you want to do that, put it in a safe or something. However you want to secure pieces of paper. A lot of people have a lot of different ideas on that. But Copay allows for usually with a multi-sig, it's for like a company that will have like multiple employees that have to verify that the company is going to spend some Bitcoin or something. But that enterprise level of security you can do yourself just by installing Copay on multiple devices and creating shared wallets between those devices. It's a really slick implementation. It's a very clever little trick that Copay kind of winks at. Like, yeah, we know you can do that, and we're glad. So Copay is a great Bitcoin only wallet. You don't want to install a bunch of wallets. I understand that. You don't really want to hold these things in the exchange, like at Bittrex or something. You could, if you plan on making a lot of, if you plan on doing some arbitrage and, shifting money between different coins or something. But that's what I would do. So for Bitcoin, use Copay. If you want, and you can use that on mobile as well. If you just want like a little mobile Bitcoin wallet, Mycelium is hands down just one of the best Bitcoin wallets out there, but it's for Android and it's phenomenal. And it's Android only, by the way. In fact, I cover it in my book, Dark Android, the 2017 edition. It's the wallet that I recommend using. But unless you want to do the multi-sig thing, in which case, then you want to do Copay. So for Bitcoin, use Copay or maybe Mycelium. If you have an Android device and you don't want it to be anywhere else. For Litecoin, you want to use Litecoin Electrum, in my opinion. And then for Zencash, you use right from Zencash's main website, zensystem.io. You use the Swing wallet, and that's what you do. Just make sure your computer can handle those balls. Where you have at least 4 gig of RAM. I don't think there are many computers out there that are single core now, so I don't think that that's so much an issue. But some computers don't have 4 gig of RAM or over, so something to keep in mind. Anyway, let's wrap this up. I just got to say, please understand, the cryptocurrency space is still so nascent. It's still so new. You can still get in on this. Okay. There's people that make some pretty wild predictions, some of which they make convincing cases that, look, cash is just going to die. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good thing in the, in a pragmatic sense, but cash is just going to die. Like entire economies can be upended, even in the United States. And maybe you want your money somewhere where people can't get it, where they can't touch it. And getting it into cryptocurrency isn't a bad idea. This is such an exciting field. If you missed out on Bitcoin, there are so many other opportunities coming, and they're already out there. We mentioned Zencash, Zcash. I mean, just lots of these things. There's lots of opportunities involved. Don't wait. Don't think, oh, it's too late. It's at $200. Oh, it's at $600. It's too late. Oh, it's at $3,000. It's too late. It's not too late. It's never too late. If anything, it's just a great way to protect, or it's an option, I should say. I don't want to necessarily say great way. It's an option to, secure, to secure your value, okay, your monetary value. So just do it. All right. And those are the options. If you have other questions, feel free to email me. We can talk about it on future Q&As. Hardware wallets. If you're interested in that realm, I've kind of been against hardware wallets for a little while, but Trezor has been impressing me with a lot of their new features that they've been adding in. Trezor is a great option as far as hardware wallets. There's other ones, but that's the one that I put a lot of stock in, shall we say. And as far as the others, I mentioned that try to steer clear of the multi-currency wallets, because I think that comes at a cost of security and some other things. You want, the thing is, you don't have to get into 100 different cryptocurrencies. I mean, you can, you don't have to. If you stick with Bitcoin, Litecoin, Zencash, maybe Monero, or maybe even Dash, I guess, or certainly Zcash, which is just, so rock solid. That's not that many. You can deal with that. Okay. So there you go. Anyway, that's it for this week's little Wednesday Q&A. We did a little retreading, but I think that's important to do every once in a while, especially right now with so much happening in the cryptocurrency space, and really in the mobile space in general. So, got some other exciting stuff coming out for you this week, and of course got a dynamite sovereign tech lined up. I will see you on the other side.